Hey everybody, this is Ashley Stahl from AshleyInternational.com, and I just wanted to hop on Facebook Live to talk to you about how to get clear on your purpose in work and in life. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this because there's a lot of angles that I don't think are being met when it comes to the topic of finding your purpose and really living it out, both in life and in career. So the first question that I want to ask you is one that isn't typically discussed when it comes to finding your purpose, and I think it's one of the most important ones. And the question that I recommend asking yourself is not what is my purpose, but rather the question of what pain am I willing to deal with in my life for the sake of whatever purpose I feel called to. Because no matter what you feel called to as far as a purpose goes, if you're not willing to deal with the pain that comes with it, then it's not the path for you. An easy way to think about this is, I can actually just give you some examples in my own life, but obviously an easy way to think about it is, that person who wants to lose that 10 pounds or whatever have you, but they're not willing to deal with the pain of going to the gym, saying no to their cupcake after lunch or whatever. I know I'm personally not willing to deal with the pain of saying no to a cupcake. But I want to just share with you, because I'm feeling quite raw and honest. I know a lot of you are Ashley International subscribers who are tuning into this Facebook Live, so I feel like I could be even more honest than I usually already am. Years ago, when I started in the workforce and I started job hunting, I'll never forget one of my job interviews. It was like a toy warehouse or something equally ridiculous and not aligned. I mean, I studied war and I had a master's degree in war, so needless to say, doing a job interview at a toy warehouse was a bit off. And I'll never forget this moment where I walked into the interview and the guy looked at me, and he owned this warehouse, and he said to me, "You don't belong here." And it was for like an office management job or something, and I had a master's in war from a top 25 school in the world. And side note, doesn't even matter what your education is. And hi Tracy, I see so many of you tuning in, that's awesome. It doesn't matter what your education is, just matters how you are able to talk to people, which I'm going to give you 3 steps really shortly on how to really get connected to your purpose. But I remember sitting in that interview and him looking at me and interrupting me mid-sentence. And he said to me, "You seem really polished, you seem really competent, and you're going to be really bored here at this warehouse. You don't belong here. You shouldn't work here at this warehouse." And I remember feeling like absolute resignation, not surrender. Surrender is more of acceptance, but resignation, almost like just quitting. And it was because it wasn't my purpose. I didn't really belong there, and I wasn't willing to put up with the pain of sitting as an office manager in a toy warehouse. But I want to talk to you about when I knew, hey Megan, when I knew that I was on the path of purpose, and certain signs that you can look at, and also just some things for you to consider. So I remember my first job that I got finally was as an admin assistant at an ad agency, and I got so tired of not really expressing who I was and not really doing what I had studied and wanted to pursue in the government, that eventually I got to a place where I was like, you know what, I'm ready to move to DC. I'm ready to be the person I'm supposed to be. And so I contacted my university and I got an alumni list of every single alumni that ever got a job in Washington, DC. And I called thousands, 2,000 people on my college alumni list. And this kind of goes back to the question I asked you earlier. It's not what is my purpose, but what pain am I willing to deal with in my life to honor a calling? And maybe you're not sure on your calling, and I'm going to give you some tips and steps in a few minutes to talk to you about how you can kind of unlock that. But I remember calling every single alumni. It was like 2,000 people, phone call after phone call. Some people found me really annoying. Other people were really willing to help me. But what I got out of all of those phone calls was a profound understanding that I was willing to deal with whatever pain I felt, whatever rejection that people were giving me on the phone, because I felt this level of purpose, this level of calling, this level of focus and commitment to myself to get a job in DC. So I was sitting in my admin job, and on my lunch breaks, I would make these phone calls, and eventually I ended up getting tons of job interviews and accepting a position to run a program for the Pentagon. And I went from, as so many of you know, an admin assistant to a management role, working for the Pentagon as a defense contractor, tripled my salary. And what I learned from that was that I was willing to deal with extraordinary pain and discomfort for the sake of getting that job. And so again, the biggest question to ask yourself is not just what is my purpose, but what pain and discomfort am I willing to deal with and endure for a higher calling or for an inkling or for a level of inspiration that I'm feeling. Eventually I started Ashley International, and I help so many of you. I know that there's a lot of you. It feels really awesome that the AI community is here. I know some of you have been calling me internationally, and that's really funny. But I ended up starting Ashley International, and this is something not a lot of you know, but when I started Ashley International, I ended up creating a webinar. I went into about $100,000 of debt. Nobody was buying our job hunting course. I couldn't figure out how to sell it. Eventually, it started working, and we ended up having thousands of job seekers join our course. And since then, about 1 million job seekers have registered for our free workshops on the internet. And one thing that I think about often is that when I started to get traction and things started to succeed over at Ashley International, something really weird happened. And it was that by being out there, people started to criticize me. And there were people I didn't know and people who didn't know me. But people would write about me on the internet, or they would review me. And it was one of the most traumatizing things I've ever dealt with, because as a lot of you who read my emails know, I'm pretty sensitive. And so getting criticized on the internet by people who don't know me was probably one of the most painful things I've ever dealt with. And the only way I can really describe that experience was to see so much success in a company that I had gone into debt for and really believed in, creating a product that I really believed in. And to see so much criticism come in the middle of the success was such a reminder for me that I was willing to deal with the pain that comes with this purpose. And yes, Stephen, I am live. And hi, Sadi. It's so nice to meet you guys. Thanks for joining me. I'm about to give you a few strategies for your purpose, so hang with me. I'm just speaking and speaking. I don't even know why I'm just inspired, but it was one of the most profound experiences of my life to have success and to have criticism and devastation at the same time. And the only way that I can describe my willingness to do it was that I felt this extraordinary level of purpose in the program I was creating. And it was such a deep purpose that I was willing to deal with the criticism and pain and devastation and heartbreak that I felt when people who don't know me were criticizing me. And people would say things to me and make me feel better, like, oh, well, if people are criticizing you, that means you're doing something in the world. But it didn't make it feel any easier. So, thought number one, the biggest mistake I want to share with you that people make when it comes to finding their purpose is asking for other people's opinion all the time. It's kind of like if you're dating somebody really awful for you and you want to ask everybody else what they think because you already know what you think, but you hate what you think, because then that means you have to break up with the person. I think that's a lot of the times what we do with advice. We don't trust ourselves, so we run around asking everybody else for advice. So one of the biggest mistakes I see job seekers make all the time, and I've helped thousands of them through our programs, is turning to so many people other than outside of themselves for answers that they already know on who they are and what they want in the world. Your mom, your best friend, these people in your life are all incredibly helpful for you to reconnect with yourself, but they're never going to connect you to your purpose in the same way that you can do for yourself. And one of the biggest mistakes you can make is creating a lot of noise around you, insofar as asking a lot of people's opinions, and then eventually you're kind of more confused than when you started. So if there's anything you could do, it's to start to trust yourself and stop buying into everybody else's beliefs about what's possible for you, what you're meant to do, and really just take everything as a grain of salt, especially even this Facebook Live from me, because you are the expert on you. And that is one of the fundamental things I've trained a lot of coaches that I share with them, is that you are your own coach and that the value is in the client. And you being my client at this moment in time, the value is in you. You already know you. So the biggest mistake you can make is to create a lot of noise in your life as it relates to finding your purpose. If you want to get clearer on your purpose, cut the noise and start listening to yourself. Create an environment for yourself, whether it's through meditation or whether it's just through, just getting really quiet, stopping asking people for advice on things, and starting to just allow an environment where you can listen to yourself. You are so much wiser than, and Tracy's talking about this, I see below. Exactly, you know yourself better than anyone. And so the first thing I want to recommend to you is to get really quiet. And this is not one of my 3 tips. This is just kind of a random thought that I wanted to share with you. So get really quiet, listen to yourself, and write down what you know. One of the most powerful things that I think people don't do often enough is get connected to what they already know. A lot of the times we're focused on what we don't know, and we're suffering in the throes of what we don't know. We don't know our purpose. We don't know if we should be with this person. We don't know what to wear. I mean, we don't know, but there's something really powerful about sitting down and focusing on what you do know, connecting with yourself, getting really quiet, and asking yourself, what pain am I willing to deal with to honor a higher purpose? I was willing to deal with the pain of people criticizing me on the internet, strangers not liking me, which is really hard. I remember the first national or international piece of press I ever got. I woke up early. It was like in 2012 or something like that. And I read the article, and at the bottom of the article, I saw that there was already 100 comments. And I was so excited. I was like, what are people saying about this article that I'm in? And I was so excited. I remember reading the comments. One of the most painful things was people criticizing me. Some things that I literally can't even repeat because it's sad to even think about. So let's talk about 3 ways to get more connected to your purpose and who you really are in the world. So step number 1, and by the way, stay tuned because I'm going to be offering a really awesome freebie at the end of this for everybody here. Step number 1 is to know who fascinates you and to become fascinating. So this is one of my favorite topics, is to know who fascinates you. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in your career right now, there's someone that you're pulled towards, someone that you're inspired by, and there's something that drives you. So a lot of the times your core values are a really powerful resource to get connected to who you are and what you want in the world. But really asking yourself, who fascinates me? Who's doing work in the world that I find really, really inspiring, moving, and motivating? And then the bigger question to ask yourself is why? Why do they fascinate you? What is it about them? So for a really long time, when I was studying counterterrorism and I was pursuing my master's in war at King's College in London, I was studying Arabic at UCLA, I was absolutely fascinated by Condoleezza Rice, female leaders in politics. I was fascinated by Sheryl Sandberg over at Facebook. I was really inspired by her book, Lean In. I found myself being drawn towards women in power. And for a long time, I interpreted that as me being meant to work on, something with women. And then eventually having worked on government and studied government, the answer that I came to was to work in counterterrorism and to pursue a career in counterterrorism. And that eventually led me into helping so many women. I know 87% of you who have joined us at Ashley International in one of our programs are female. So, I found a way to help women, and I think that what was huge for that was getting really quiet with myself and notice what you're noticing that I am fascinated by women in power. I'm fascinated by strong women who make a difference in the world, by entrepreneurs. And years and years later, here I am as an entrepreneur. I own 2 companies. And most of them are female focused, and I help women at Cake Publishing House with their personal brand, whether it means using our ghostwriters to get them more PR, using our publicists, our social media managers, our copywriters. And so I found a way to express myself, and it started with who fascinates me. So not only are you really supposed to ask yourself, well, who fascinates me, but what is it about them that's fascinating? So for me, Sheryl Sandberg, let's take her for example. I was absolutely fascinated by her ability to inspire people through conversation. And that was what inspired me to go learn coaching, to learn the business of transformation. How do I transform people's lives through a conversation? That became a huge question that I started to ask myself, and a huge fascination that I started to have. And so that really led me into the coaching space. I ended up hiring a lot of strong women that were my coaches, change makers, and that led me to do my own coaching practice. And the next step is to become fascinating. So it's really important that once you start to notice the people who are fascinating to you, figure out what it is about them, what kind of careers that they're in. So there's a couple sub-steps to that. What is it about them that fascinates you? What kind of careers have they taken on that you might be interested in? And how can you start to have conversations with these women? This might mean networking conversations. This can mean that you go to mixers. This can mean that you go to meetup.com and you join groups where these people are already associating with, so that you can surround yourself with these sorts of women. And the next step is to become fascinating. And this is my favorite thing. So the best way to And I love Rick is asking, what did you include being impactful through conversations? Perfect. Rick, you must have ESP because that's where I'm about to go with this. So one of the most powerful things you can do to be fascinating is to follow what you're naturally inclined towards. And I think one of the saddest things that I've noticed, having been a career coach for the past 5 years now, is that so many people know that they're inclined towards something, but they don't see it out. So I'm a Gemini, my horoscope is a Gemini. And one thing a lot of people sometimes see who know me really well, or don't know me well, but eventually do, is they think I appear scattered maybe because I'm doing a lot of things all the time. And I've explained many times, and friends who really know me know this, I'm not scattered. I'm just constantly pursuing my interests full out, figuring out if they're for me or not. Kristen says, me too. Holler, Kristen. I get it. So my recommendation would be to really, Stephen Gemini's rule, that's what's up. All of our personalities. It feels like a whole board, a whole committee in my head. But what I would say is, in order to become fascinating, start to follow what you're naturally interested in. One thing a lot of people don't know about me is right now I'm taking DJ lessons. I'm taking hip hop classes. I love rap music. I follow everything that I'm interested in full out. So if you want to be fascinating, it's not just about your career. It's about really taking an inventory of what are you interested in your life that you're not pursuing right now. Have you always wanted to learn Spanish? Have you always wanted to learn DJing? Have you always wanted to take hip hop classes? Have you always wanted to quit your job for a year and travel the world? What's fascinating is you being you. And I really, if there is nothing you remember from this video, I just feel like my whole body just like wanting to get this through to you. You are so much more fascinating than you even know. And the only reason, if you feel suppressed or depressed, I think depression is really just suppression. And a lot of the times we get depressed because we're suppressing a part of who we are. And that piece of us that we're usually suppressing is the part that's really fascinating to other people. And so the only difference between me, if somebody thinks I'm fascinating, and someone else that someone doesn't think is fascinating, is that they've tuned into the fact that I'm doing things that interest me and I'm exploring in my life full out. So after this Facebook Live, step one, know who fascinates you. Write down, who is it? Why are they fascinating to you? Where do these people hang out? How can you get around these people? And then become fascinating so that when you have conversations with people, they can see some dimension to you that is well beyond how you're coming across. So something that's really interesting is I've been coached recently by a man. His name is Jay Abraham, and he charges $100,000 to coach somebody for a day. And he offered to support me. And he said it, and he said in a lot of ways it was because some of the things I told him was fascinating. And so I just want to impart here that one of the most powerful assets you have is your ability to fascinate. And I don't want you to think for a second that that means you need to be somebody else. What you need to be is you amplified. And so that means really taking an inventory after this Facebook Live is, where are you suppressing yourself? Whether you're, a total weirdo and you want to do day breakers and dance at 6 a.m. before work, and that's a thing for you. Whether you have a fascination with rap music and you want to just go nuts and go on a string of rap concerts. If you want to write a weird book that you don't care if anybody reads it, do that thing, whatever that is super random, that is super you. It's funny. A lot of the times I think a lot of people can lose themselves, I being one of them. And whenever I'm being me is when people are drawn to me and the most. And this happened the other night. I was in Las Vegas and I thankfully got out right before the shooting, which was just awful. I was on an airplane leaving Vegas at that time, and I ended up on the plane next to a girl, and we just ended up having this really connected conversation. And she looked at me, and here's something I really want to impart to you also on the note of being fascinating, is I didn't talk about myself whatsoever during our conversation. I asked her a lot of questions. I was just really naturally curious about her. I found she was really interesting. She was an entrepreneur as well. Asked her lots of questions. She just went to a conference where actually a few friends of mine were speakers, and I didn't even mention it. I just asked her how their presentations were because I thought, I'll tell my friends what they could work on because I'm getting neutral feedback from somebody who was in the audience. So I just asked her tons of questions and towards the end, she looked at me and truly, guys, I didn't ask her and I didn't tell her anything about me. She started asking about me at the total end when the plane was landing. And at the end of the flight, she turned to me and she said, I think you're the most fascinating person I've ever met. And I looked at her and I just like, my brain was blown. And what was so crazy to me about it was that there was nothing I gave her to make me fascinating. I mean, truly, when I was talking to her, I only asked her questions. So if you want to be fascinating, I have 2 strategies for that. Number 1, figure out what you're suppressing in yourself that you're not out there doing and go explore it full out. It doesn't matter what people think of you. And if that means quitting your job and getting some weird job as like a cheese farmer or whatever the hell you want to do it because it's fascinating. And you are going to get so much more out of fascinating people because you're so interesting and because you're so you and unique than anything else. The second thing, based on my airplane conversation, to be fascinating is totally random, and that is to ask people questions. Be fascinated by other people. So once you know who fascinates you and you surround yourself with that sort of community, get really connected to asking other people questions, being interested genuinely in other people. I will never forget the fact that I got off the airplane and this girl looked at me and said, you are the most fascinating person I've ever met. And I just thought, oh my God, I didn't tell her anything about me. I just asked her questions about her. And I guess I made her feel like I was fascinating based on the questions I was asking. Whatever it is, it was all about having a genuine interest. So, step number 1, know who fascinates you and be fascinating. Step number 2, to finding your purpose in your career and your life is to find purpose everywhere else outside of your career. So I know a lot of you, and we've gotten emails from thousands of you, over at Ashley International, and our team's always forwarding me emails, and I'm always reading about you guys. And one of the things that I think is really lacking, I'm sorry, I'm having a bad hair day, guys. Woo. Okay. One of the things that I find is really lacking is that a lot of people want to find their purpose, but one of the areas that they totally miss out and miss the mark is that they're not creating purpose in their everyday life. And my question is, how can you find purpose in your 9 to 5 if you're not connected to a sense of self and purpose outside of your 9 to 5? So I would take an inventory right now. Where else do you have purpose in your life? Because if you don't know your career purpose, one of the most powerful things that you can do is get really connected to where do you feel purpose in your everyday life? Maybe that means that, you find purpose through volunteering. Maybe that means that you find purpose in your friendships. Whatever that might be, I find a lot of purpose through writing. One of our employees over at Ashley International, one of her core values is impact. And she loves to make an impact, and it's really important to know your core values when it comes to getting connected to your purpose. So definitely, Google, we have a core values guide. You can email us over at support@ashleyinternational.com if you want to get access to that. Just ask for the core values guide. But one of the most interesting things that I've noticed is that a lot of people are demanding a sense of purpose in their career and they're asking for that, but they're not creating a purpose in their everyday life. So get connected to your core values. So one of our employees, like I was saying over Ashley International, her purpose or her core value is impact. And believe it or not, I know that we've made an impact at Ashley International, but my core value is not impact. Impact is not a core value of mine. And it's not that I don't value impact. It just doesn't drive me. What drives me is connection. I know what drives me. I need to be connected. And of course, through connection, I can make a huge impact. But I have to lead with connection, meaning this Facebook Live, writing my blog, writing for Forbes, whatever it is that I do, I really deeply want to connect with people. And I feel like I'm dying if I'm not. So really ask yourself, where do you feel a sense of purpose? And a lot of times you could figure that out through looking at a list of values and figuring out which ones resonate deeply for you. So get connected to your purpose. Get connected to who you truly are in the world outside of your career. Because in order for you to create purpose in your career, it starts with creating purpose within yourself in your everyday life. And so one of the things that I've done is I recently taught at a school in Compton, just for a day, young girls, because I just felt such a sense of purpose in helping disadvantaged communities with their education. And I know that one thing I'm good at as a writer and as a connector is communication. And so I thought maybe I can use my desire to connect and my desire to help people to feel a sense of purpose and help them in their lives. And I was able to bring that and harness that energy into my career. And I have to tell you, being in a situation where I am connecting and using my core values and feeling a sense of purpose is transformative for me in my career. I come back to my desk and I've got new ideas. Like, have you ever been around people and all of a sudden you feel your vibes go up and you feel like, oh my God, there are so many ideas that are flowing through me right now. I can't even believe it. I have so much I want to contribute. It's like you end up in like a very inspiring environment and then you become inspired. So, get connected to your core values and create a sense of purpose around those in your everyday life, because you cannot expect to create that in your career if you're not creating that in your everyday life. And the third step that I have to share with you is a lot more tactical than a lot of you probably expect based on how this Facebook Live has been so far. And that is to make friends with LinkedIn.com's advanced search function. So this is actually quite strategic, and hopefully if you have a pen and pad, you can write this down. So make friends with LinkedIn's advanced search. And before I actually share this tip, which is my favorite one, I just want to let you guys know on Monday next week, I've been asked by a lot of you guys for some coaching. I know that my team coaches so many of you, and I rarely show up to do that. And so I was inspired, speaking of connection and purpose, to offer a free group coaching call to any of you, whether you're a subscriber at ashleyinternational.com, a reader on Forbes, however you found me. All you got to do is head to ashleyinternational.com /group call. And I'll write that in the comments section, but it's ashleyinternational.com /group call. And you can sign up for the group call on Monday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be coaching any of you for free about life purpose and just taking your individual situations and helping you with that just for fun. Because I believe in connection. Okay, so let's get to my third tip. And I see some of you are asking me. It's ashleyinternational.com /group call. And you can register there. So anyway, the next thing I want to share is just around LinkedIn's advanced search function. So the first thing to really consider when it comes to using LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is such a powerful tool when it comes to finding your purpose. And I don't think the founder of LinkedIn intended this. I don't know any career coaches talking about this. I share this information with my community because it's something that I discovered on my own when I was trying to figure out my purpose in the world and what I wanted to do with my life. So I highly, highly, highly recommend getting on LinkedIn, clicking the advanced search button, and you are going to see a keyword section pop up. And what you want to think about when you type in the keywords is, number one, who fascinates you and what it is about them. So maybe the people who fascinate you happen to be working in the communications field or in politics. You want to pair a word that has to do with their industry or the industry you might want to be in or that you're exploring with a word that has to do with function. And when I say function, what I mean by that is an industry is politics. A function is communications, writing, real estate acquisitions, marketing management, merchandising. You want to think of the actual job you're doing, that you're using your fingers, your brain, your energy for in the day-to-day life. What you're actually doing at your desk is the function. So if you're a writer, if you're a speaker, if you're a salesperson, that's all function words. And you want to go into LinkedIn's advanced search and you want to type in an industry word. So let's say politics. And then, if you're interested in the function of writing, then write the word writing down. So politics and writing. And if you can think of another functional word like communications, politics, writing, communications, write about 3 words in the keywords box of LinkedIn's advanced search. And when you do that, you can, and sorry, I got distracted because Shirley, thank you, she was saying my zipper on my shirt was coming down. Hopefully it's not. But when you're doing that on LinkedIn's advanced search, what's really, really important is that you hit the search button in the city that you're in. So let's say your 3 keywords, you pick 1 industry keywords and 2 functional keywords of the kind of job you'd be interested in. You could base this off of you or the people that you're fascinated by. Put your city into the advanced search or a zip code, a postal code. And then from there, click search and look at profiles of other people who are out there in the world doing things that are interesting to you. It's kind of like on Amazon.com when you buy a book and it says, if you like this book, then you're going to like that book. When you use LinkedIn's advanced search, it's kind of like, okay, if you're into, Megan says your shirt was fine. Thanks, Megan. I was actually dying inside and I don't know if you could tell that I was getting really nervous. I was like, oh, Facebook Live, my shirt. Anyway, so when you're using the advanced search on LinkedIn, what you're going to do is you're really going to see a lot of people who are out there and you're going to look at profiles and you can kind of shop on LinkedIn and just check out other people's profiles to kind of see what are people out there doing, because there's so many jobs that are out there. And I want to leave on this note and just remind you again, because I see so many of you are joining. Those of you who didn't hear, if you go to ashleyinternational.com/group call, I'm doing a free group call on Monday coaching any of you. I'm going to try and get through as many people as possible on your clarity, your purpose, your career, just for the hell of it, because it sounds like a good time. So I just want to impart this to you. Clarity comes from engagement. It's never going to come from thought. If you are thinking yourself and you think that you can think your way into clarity, then that is like rocking in a rocking chair and hoping you're going to get somewhere. And if you really want to find your purpose, it's about getting out there. It's about making a choice, showing up, seeing what feedback the universe gives you, and course correcting along the way. So no matter where you are in your life, in your career, it's so important that you really get connected to taking action. So this leads me to just want to repeat all of the points that I made, because I see that there's hundreds of you who are just joining. And, you know, if you want to post questions, I can answer some questions because I'm having so much fun being here with you. And maybe I can ask some generalized questions. And I know I saw some of them and I lost them in the train of comments. So just repost your question. But here's the key points that I talked about. Number 1, the question to be asking yourself, well, this is not a point, but this is a thought. The question to be asking yourself is not what is my purpose, but what pain am I willing to deal with? So in my career, I was willing to deal with the pain of calling 2,000 strangers to get the job that I really wanted, working for the Pentagon. And that translated into tripling my salary, learning how to job hunt, and creating the Limitless Career Lab, which is in 25 countries. We have almost 5,000 customers. And it's really just been my way of sharing who I am and making a difference in the world. And I was willing to deal with the pain of debt. When I created that course, I went into about $100,000 of debt on my credit cards, almost couldn't pay my rent when things started to work. And thankfully they started to work. I also, once it started to succeed, was willing to deal with the pain of extraordinary criticism. So what pain are you willing to deal with to have your purpose? And just a reminder, I said earlier, the biggest mistake that I see people make when it comes to really figuring out who they are, and I'm not talking about hiring a coach, because I think it's really powerful to hire a coach and get advice, but it's asking for too many people's advice. You start to translate into just being scattered and not listening to yourself. And a lot of the times, getting people's advice is great, but check in with yourself. Where is that coming from? Are you asking others people's advice because you're afraid to listen to yourself? You don't trust yourself? You really want to get quiet and allow you to listen to you. And again, the link for you to join me on a group coaching call is ashleyinternational.com/group call. That's going to be on Monday. I'm so excited to coach so many of you. And the 3 points that I shared when it comes to really finding your purpose and being you. Hey, Jess! Love it when my friends join Facebook Live. That feels so good. The 3 tips that I shared. Number 1, know who fascinates you, because there is a gift in getting clear on who fascinates you in the world. If you are fascinated by someone, there is some sort of message in that. There's some sort of indicator in that you know, that they have something for you to learn or that you want to develop in yourself. So ask yourself, what is it about them that's fascinating to me? Where do these kinds of people hang out? Join a meetup on meetup.com. Go to networking events. Surround yourself with these people and become fascinating. And as I said earlier, the 2 ways to become fascinating. Number 1, be authentically interested in people when you're having conversations with them. Ask a lot of questions. For some reason, when you are really deeply interested in someone else, they translate you as a fascinating person to them. Secondly is to explore who you are and be who you are full out. So take me, for example. I secretly am obsessed with DJs, and I think that it's just so powerful to be amazing at creating music mashups, and it's very freeing. So I'm taking DJ lessons. I am exploring who I am full out, and I think that for some reason that makes people fascinated. So explore who you are, take an inventory of where you're at in your life, and ask yourself, where can I be more fascinating? Where can I contribute to the world on an authentic level with who I am? Amplified. The second tip that I shared was to find your purpose everywhere else in your life if you don't have it yet in your career. The biggest mistake people make is they focus so much on their career that they completely forget their life outside of it. Or maybe you're too busy having fun that you don't even care about your career. Whatever it is, you want to get connected to your core values and really ask yourself, who am I? What resonates for me? So my core values are connection, family, growth. Those are some of my fundamental ones. And success, that's a core value for me. I like the feeling of creation and achievement. So whatever your core values are, you want to know those so that you can go and use those as guides to go find your purpose everywhere else in your life. And the third strategy I shared was a little more technical, and it was about using LinkedIn's advanced search. So if you don't know your purpose, hop on LinkedIn, click the advanced search button, and type in a couple of words. Number 1 is an industry word. So if you want to work in fashion, if you want to work in real estate, if you want to work in research, and then put in a couple keywords. So a keyword could be writing. It could be finance. That's a functional word that describes the kind of job you're doing. So use a function word. And from there, put your postal code in for your city or whatever city you want to get a job in, and take a look at what people are out there who align, what profiles align with the keywords that you've typed in. Because chances are, if those are the things that you're interested in, people are going to pop up and have jobs that you might have never imagined are out there. And again, this is something that I started to do maybe 5 years ago when I was working for the Pentagon. And I don't know, maybe I went crazy because there's no windows in the Pentagon, and I started to just go a little cray-cray, but I started to get crazy on LinkedIn, and I learned that you can really get connected to your clarity by looking at other people's profiles through the advanced search function. So just remember, clarity comes from engagement. It doesn't come from thought. I cannot wait to coach so many of you on Monday. All you got to do is go on over to ashleeinternational.com/group call. And I saw a couple questions. Stephen is asking tips on networking. So let's talk about that. I would say one tip when it comes to networking is after you use the advanced search on LinkedIn. So let's say you're implementing the tips that I'm mentioning. And by the way, those of you who are watching this, I hope you share this, because I know I was getting emails before I did this Facebook Live, and so many people are suffering because they don't know their purpose. So if you know someone who needs these tips, I hope you share this Facebook Live and get it out there. Hopefully there's someone else I can help today with this. But I would say, Stephen, one of my tips for networking is once you've done that advanced search on LinkedIn, be bold and inbox somebody on LinkedIn. And obviously it's better if you can find their email. One of my favorite tools to find someone's email is called Email Hunter. It's a Google Chrome plugin. So just Google Email Hunter and plug it into your Google Chrome, and it's really powerful for you to find just about anybody's email. But from there, I would say reach out to somebody, email somebody that's interesting to you, ask them if they're willing to give you a few minutes of their time over a phone call or a quick cup of coffee. Let them know you're happy to come to them at their convenience. One of the best things you could do when it comes to networking is, one of the strategic things you could do is for example, I think it's really disempowering to let the workforce determine what you want versus you determining what you want. The other day I was in a really high-level business group, and somebody said, how do you hire rock stars? And I was talking about how Ashley International has extraordinary talented people working for it. This company, I mean, my team is extraordinarily talented. And one of the things I told them is it's because when I hire somebody, I don't look at who's looking for a job. I look at who I want to hire. I'll use LinkedIn's advanced search to figure out who out there is hiring. Or who out there has experience that I'm interested in, and I will reach out directly to that person, whether they show that they're looking for a job or not, and I will inbox them and say, you look extraordinarily talented. I would love to talk to you about Ashley International. So I recruit people for me, and it's the same thing when it comes to getting a job. Instead of letting the workforce determine and bending yourself to the workforce, letting the workforce determine like what you're going to do with your career, I would suggest instead really thinking to yourself, well, what's interesting to me? Who's interesting to me? And how do I talk to them and get a job through our conversations? How can I use the power of conversation, fascination, authenticity, honesty to build real connections with people who can actually help move me forward? Because when you're connecting with inspiring people and you're inspired, they notice, they feel it, and they push you forward. So thank you so much, Stephen, for your question. April, you said you can't get a job. I don't know if that's a question, but maybe you're asking like how to get one. We have a free online workshop at landmorejoboffers.com. So if you haven't done that, and I think if anybody on my team is watching this Facebook Live, if you could post that link, landmorejoboffers.com, in response to April here, that would be awesome. Lee is asking, how else can we contact you? Well, there's many different ways to work with us. If you want a private coach, you can email Mary Beth at ashleyinternational.com. And if anybody from my team is on this Facebook Live, if you could just respond to Lee with Mary Beth's email. If you want to join one of our programs, you can email Mary Beth as well. If you want to do something free from us, we have a free resume guide at ashleyinternational.com, tons of blogs. I blog my brains out because I love writing. What else? Charitha says it's very tough to find a job in healthcare. Can you help? Yes. I would say use LinkedIn's advanced search tool to find people in healthcare that fascinate you in the function that you're interested in. So if it's nursing, if it's being a doctor, if it's research, science, whatever it is, highly, highly recommend inboxing people on LinkedIn, letting them know that you're absolutely fascinated and inspired by them and you'd love to have a quick conversation. And there's so many strategies that I share in our programs. But one thing, so I'm trying to figure out, because I have 10 hours of instruction in our programs. One thing I would say is asking people, how can I stand out as a candidate? That's a great question when you're networking with people. How can I stand out as a candidate for a position in the medical space? Really great question to ask somebody, and it also shows them that it presents them with the opportunity to help you if they're called to do that. All right. What other questions am I seeing? Oh, awesome. We got the advice. Okay. No more questions. All right. Well, Tracy's asking, how did I train other coaches? You know what? I love this question because I have a really weird answer. One of the weirdest things that I noticed when I was training other coaches, that a lot of coaches would ask me what kind of certification they should get. And I'm not a really big fan of certifications. I'm a really big fan of hiring and apprenticing a powerful coach. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own earnings throughout the years on coaches because I think the most powerful way for me to become a talented coach is to work only under the best. So you heard me mention earlier, I've been coached by some of the best and I'm inspired by them. One guy recently that I'm working with is a man named Jay Abraham. He's the godfather of marketing and he coaches Tony Robbins' team, Damon John from Shark Tank. He's a really inspiring guy and he's really inspired to help the millennial generation. So you'll be hearing from him a little bit more in my community. And I would say if you want to be a great coach, apprentice and hire an amazing coach to do inner work on yourself. You cannot help people as a coach, as an influencer, as a person in the business of transformation, unless you are working to see your own blind spots. So the most powerful thing you could do at any given time is to figure out what your blind spots are, because you can't take anybody that you've never been yourself. So thank you guys for amazing questions. I'm so honored to have supported you in any way. And again, we're going to do a free group coaching call on Monday at ashleyinternational.com/group call. We got free stuff everywhere, all free everything. So just pay attention for that. Always offering stuff to our subscribers. We're going to have a free career summit in the new year with 20 speakers online who are the best of the best in their field. So stay tuned for that if you're on our list. And I'm so grateful to have hung out with you guys and to supported you in any way I can. So thanks for sharing this training or this Facebook Live. Thanks for the great questions. And I'm sending you guys so much love, and I can't wait to meet some of you on the call on Monday. Take care.